The two women couldn't have been more than 21, but their eyes belonged to souls much older. One stood at the edge of Arthur Mercer's porch, silhouetted against the fading amber light of a September evening, holding the reins of a swayback mare that looked ready to collapse. Behind her, barely visible in the growing dusk, sat her identical twin, slumping in the saddle, silent. She didn't dismount. She didn't speak. She just watched Arthur with the kind of stillness that came from learning early that the world was dangerous. "Could we rest in your barn?" the standing woman asked. Her voice was quiet but held no tremor. No pleading, no desperation, just a question, flat and practiced, like she'd asked it before and been turned away more times than she could count. Arthur stood in the doorway, one hand gripping the frame. He was a man built from the land itself, broad-shouldered, weathered, with hands scarred from years of mending fences and breaking stubborn horses. His hair had gone silver at the temples, and his face carried the deep lines of a man who'd lived through more silence than conversation. He should have said no. That was the smart answer, the safe answer. A rancher living alone 20 miles from the nearest town didn't take in strangers, especially not in times like these, when the territory was still crawling with drifters and men who'd forgotten what it meant to live without violence. But Arthur didn't say no. He looked past the woman at her twin on the horse. The rider's face was pale, her lips chapped and cracked. Her traditional silk tunic, though well-made, was travel-stained and hung loose on her frame. "How long since you ate?" Arthur asked. The standing woman's jaw tightened. "That wasn't what I asked." "We are fine." She didn't answer his question directly, instead glancing over her shoulder at her sister, some silent communication passing between them. When she turned back, her expression was harder. "We won't steal anything. We'll be gone by dawn." Arthur exhaled slowly. The smart thing would be to give them a blanket, point them toward the barn, and close the door. Let them become someone else's problem. But the sick woman's face. Arthur had seen that look before, in his own reflection, years ago when the world had taken everything from him. "Barn's full of hay bales," Arthur said finally. "Gets cold at night. You'll freeze out there." The woman's eyes narrowed, suspicious. "There's a room inside," Arthur continued, nodding toward the house. "Used to be my daughter's. Hasn't been used in a long time, but the bed's still good. You can sleep there." "We couldn't possibly." "And there's stew on the stove," Arthur said, cutting her off. "Still hot. You'll eat before you sleep." For the first time, the woman's composure cracked. Her mouth opened, then closed. Her fingers tightened on the reins, knuckles going white. "Why?" she whispered. Arthur didn't have a good answer, not one that made sense to a stranger. So he just stepped aside, holding the door open. "Because it's the right thing to do." The one who spoke was Mai. Her sister was Lynn. They didn't offer a family name, and Arthur didn't ask. They sat at his kitchen table with a quiet, wary dignity, ready to bolt, their eyes darting toward the door. Mai kept one hand on Lynn's arm, protective, while Arthur ladled stew into 2 chipped bowls. "Eat slow," he said. "You eat too fast after going hungry, you'll just bring it back up." Mai frowned but didn't argue. She nudged her sister, who ate mechanically, her gaze never leaving her bowl. Arthur didn't sit with them. He stood by the stove, arms crossed, watching without watching. They were beautiful, with identical dark hair tied back in intricate braids and faces that spoke of a different world. Their clothes were worn, their boots scuffed thin. "Where are your parents?" Arthur asked finally. My spoon stopped halfway to her mouth. She set it down carefully. "They are gone," the words hung in the air like smoke. "How long?" 3 months, maybe 4. Arthur nodded slowly. "And you've been on your own since then?" Mai's jaw tightened again. "We have managed." "I can see that," he said, his tone gentle. She glared at him, but there was no heat in it, just exhaustion. "We will leave in the morning. We won't cause trouble." "Didn't say you would." "Then why are you helping us?" Arthur turned away, pouring himself a cup of coffee. He took a slow sip, letting the silence stretch. "Because someone helped me once," he said finally. "A long time ago. When I needed it." He gave them the room upstairs. The one with the small bed and the quilt his wife had stitched. The one with the small, hand-carved music box on the dresser, gathering dust. The one he hadn't opened in 5 years. Mai hesitated at the threshold, staring at the room like it might disappear. "This is too much," she whispered. "It's a bed," Arthur said. "Nothing more." She turned to look at him, and for a moment, her mask slipped. Beneath the hard edges and the practiced weariness, she was just a young woman, scared and tired, trying desperately to keep her sister safe. "Thank you," she said quietly. Arthur simply nodded, then walked back downstairs. He didn't sleep that night. He sat in his chair by the fire, rifle across his lap, wondering what kind of trouble he'd just invited into his home. But when morning came, the bed was empty, the window was open, and the twins were gone. He found the note on the kitchen table, written in careful, cramped handwriting on a torn piece of wrapping paper. "Thank you for the food and the bed. We took nothing. We will not forget your kindness." He should have felt relieved. But relief wasn't what he felt. He folded the note, slipped it into his shirt pocket, grabbed his hat and rifle, and walked out to the barn to saddle his horse. Their trail wasn't hard to follow. He found them an hour later, stopped in the shade of a rocky outcrop. Mai was kneeling beside Lin, trying to coax her to drink from a canteen. Lin was slumped against the rock, her face pale and slick with sweat. Mai looked up sharply when she heard Arthur approach, her hand darting to her waist. A knife, Arthur realized. Small, but she held it like a weapon. "Stay back," she said. Arthur reined his horse to a stop, raising one hand slowly. "Easy. I'm not here to hurt you." "Then why are you here?" "Because you left without saying goodbye." Arthur dismounted slowly, crouching a few feet away. "Your sister's sick." "She's fine. She just needs rest. She's burning up. She needs water, food, a real bed, and probably a doctor." Mai's hand trembled, but then her shoulders sagged, the fight draining out of her. "We don't have money for a doctor," she whispered. "I'm not asking for money." She looked up at him, her eyes red-rimmed. "Why are you doing this?" Arthur looked past her at Lin, who was barely conscious now, her breathing shallow. "Because you're barely more than kids," he said finally. "And you shouldn't have to do this alone." Mai's face crumpled. "We don't have a choice." "You do now. Come back with me. Let me help you." "For how long?" "As long as it takes." Mai looked down at Lin, then back at Arthur. Her hand finally loosened on the knife, and she let it fall to the dirt. "Okay," she whispered. By the time they made it back, Lin was delirious. Arthur carried her inside and discovered the source of the fever, a nasty gash on her foot, angry and red with infection. He cleaned the wound as best he could, wrapping it in cloth soaked in whiskey. Mai stood in the doorway, pale and trembling. "Is she going to die?" "Not if I can help it," Arthur said. He stayed by Lin's side through the night. By morning, the fever had broken. Lin's eyes fluttered open, unfocused, and she looked around the room. "Mai," she whispered. Her sister was at her side in an instant, gripping her hand. "I'm here. I'm right here." Lin's gaze shifted to Arthur. "Who is that?" Mai hesitated, then managed a small, fragile smile. "That's Mr. Mercer," she said. "He's helping us." The days that followed were strained. Arthur had lived alone for so long that the sound of other voices in the house felt foreign. But slowly, he adjusted. The twins were careful and polite. They helped with chores without being asked, scrubbing dishes, mending clothes, moving through the house like guests who knew they might be asked to leave at any moment. It was Mai who finally asked the question Arthur had been waiting for. They were sitting on the porch one evening, watching the sun sink below the hills. "Why are you really doing this?" she asked quietly. Arthur stared out at the horizon. I had a daughter once, he said. About your age. He reached into his shirt pocket and pulled out a small, tarnished locket. He opened it, revealing 2 faded photographs, a woman with kind eyes and a little girl with dark braids. My wife, Margaret, and my daughter, Anna. She looks like you, Mai said softly. She had her mother's stubbornness. A faint smile touched his lips before vanishing. A fever came through the valley about 6 years ago. Took them both inside a week. I buried them out past the creek, under the cottonwood tree. He paused, the words catching in his throat. I couldn't save them. But maybe I can save you. Mai didn't say anything. She just reached over and placed her hand on top of his. They sat like that until the stars came out. The rider came 3 days later. Arthur saw him from the pasture, a dark shape moving along the road. The stranger rode a tall black gelding with a deliberate posture, a rifle strapped to his back. Arthur called out to Mai, who was hanging laundry near the house. Take your sister inside. Now. She didn't argue. Arthur walked slowly toward the road, hands visible. The rider reined his horse to a stop. He was in his mid-30s, with a lean face and sharp blue eyes. A deputy's badge gleamed on his chest. Afternoon, the man said, his voice too pleasant. Name's Deputy Cole. I'm out of Silver Creek. Long way from home, Arthur noted. That it is. Cole's gaze drifted past Arthur toward the house. I'm looking for 2 young women. Runaways. Chinese. Arthur's gut tightened, but he kept his expression neutral. Haven't seen anyone like that. Cole smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You sure about that? See, their uncle's been looking for them. Real worried. Says they ran off after their parents died. He wants to take them in, give them a proper home. He's offering a reward. $100. That was more money than most men out here saw in a year. Generous, Arthur said flatly. He's a generous man, Cole said, dismounting. Now, I'm not saying you've seen them, but if you have, it would be in everyone's best interest to speak up. Their uncle is a powerful man. And if I told you I haven't seen them? Cole's expression hardened. Then I'd say you're either telling the truth or you're making a mistake. I don't make mistakes, Arthur said, holding his gaze. Cole laughed, a low, humorless sound. All right, then. I'll be around for a few days. If you happen to remember anything, you let me know. He mounted his horse and rode off, kicking up a trail of dust. Arthur walked quickly back to the house. Mai was waiting, her face pale. Who was that? Deputy from Silver Creek. Said he's looking for 2 runaways. Mai's breath hitched. He's lying. About being a deputy, about the uncle wanting to help us. We don't have an uncle. Not anymore. She turned to Lynn, who had come downstairs. Tell him. Lynn looked down at her hands. Our uncle, he's the one who killed our parents. The words hung in the air like a gunshot. He wanted our father's business, Mai said, her voice flat and hollow. It was successful, and our uncle wanted it. He came to the house one night with 2 other men. They set fire to the workshop. When our parents ran out, her voice broke. They shot them. We were hiding in the cellar. We heard everything. When they left, we ran. We've been running ever since. Arthur swore under his breath. And this deputy works for him. He has to, Mai said. Our uncle has money. He can pay people to lie. Arthur walked to the window, staring at the empty road. Then he's not going to stop looking. We'll leave, Mai said quickly. Tonight. We won't put you in danger. No. Arthur turned to face them. His jaw was set. You're not leaving. That man out there is going to come back. If you run now, that'll just confirm his suspicions. He'll track you down, and next time I won't be there. So, what do we do? Mai whispered. Arthur looked at the two of them, standing in his kitchen, scared and so damn fragile. And he made a choice. "We fight," he said. The deputy returned on the 5th day. This time, he wasn't alone. 3 riders, moving fast. Cole was in the lead, flanked by 2 men with the hard, weathered faces of hired guns. Arthur dropped the rope he'd been coiling and ran. "My! Get Lynn! The root cellar, now! Hide there and don't come out until I tell you." "What about you?" Mike cried. "I'll handle it. Go." Arthur grabbed his rifle and stepped onto the porch, levering around into the chamber as the riders pulled up. "Mr. Mercer," Cole said pleasantly. "Didn't expect to see me again so soon, did you?" "I expected you," Arthur said evenly. "Smart man. I've been asking around. People saw 2 Chinese girls heading this way. Now, I'm not saying you lied, but I am saying I'd like to take a look around." "You got a warrant?" Cole smiled. "Don't need one. Their uncle thinks someone is holding them against their will." "That's a lie, and you know it." "Step aside, Mercer." "No." The air was tight, suffocating. Cole sighed and nodded to his men. They drew their guns. Arthur brought his rifle up fast, squeezing the trigger before the first man could clear his holster. The shot cracked through the air, and the man jerked backward, tumbling out of the saddle. The second man fired, and Arthur felt a bullet tear through his side, hot and sharp. He stumbled but fired again, and the second man dropped. Cole had his gun out now, but Arthur was faster, swinging the rifle toward him. "Drop it," Arthur growled. Cole froze. "You're bleeding." "I'll live." "Maybe," Cole smiled. "But what about them?" From the side of the house, another man appeared. He was dragging Mai by the arm, a revolver pressed to her head. "Drop the rifle," the man snarled, "or I'll paint the ground with her brains." Arthur's heart hammered in his chest. His side was screaming in pain, but all that mattered was the woman. He slowly lowered the rifle. "Good," Cole said, walking up the steps to retrieve it. He grabbed Mai by the hair. "Where's your sister?" Mai spat in his face. Cole backhanded her, sending her to the ground. Arthur lunged, but Cole slammed the rifle but into his jaw, and he hit the porch hard. "Last chance," Cole said, pointing the rifle at Mai's head. Suddenly, a shot rang out, but it wasn't from Cole's rifle. The deputy staggered, a red bloom spreading across his chest, and collapsed. In the doorway of the barn stood an old man with a shotgun. Henderson, Arthur's nearest neighbor, a man who lived 5 miles down the valley. "Heard the shots," Henderson said, his voice gravelly. "Figured you might need help." 2 more ranchers appeared behind him, rifles raised. The scarred man holding Mai turned to run, but another shot dropped him. They tied up the surviving gunman and sent for the marshal. The truth unraveled quickly. The uncle was arrested. The twins were finally free. Arthur spent the next few days in bed. Mai and Lynn never left his side, changing his bandages and bringing him water. 3 weeks later, he stood on the porch, watching the sunset. The pain in his side had dulled to a persistent ache. "Mr. Mercer," Mai said, stepping out to join him. "Arthur," he corrected gently. She smiled. "Arthur. Do you think we could stay? For good?" He looked at her, at this woman who had stumbled into his life with nothing but her sister and a world of trouble, and he felt something shift inside him, a lock clicking open in a long-closed room. "I think," he said slowly, "that would be just fine." Her face broke into a smile, wide and unguarded. "Thank you," she whispered. Years later, when the ranch was thriving, passed down the way things were meant to be, Mai and Lynn would remember the weathered man who'd opened his door when the world had turned them away. They would think, "He saved us." But Arthur, if he were there to hear it, would have said something different. He would have said, "You saved me." Because sometimes, when you open your home, you open your heart. And sometimes, that's all it takes to heal.